Hello and welcome to Barb Talks. Today we're going to be thinning apples. Now apple thinning is done in Oregon, at least for me right now, in about May. So the apples are small and there's a whole bunch of them in kind of a little cluster. And what you need to do is thin them out, because if you have all those in that tiny little cluster, they're going to get mildew in between them or little bugs that go between them and that type of thing because they're too tight together. So you need to thin them out so there's just 1 or 2 apples per cluster. Here, I'll show you. Got our ladder. I'm going up the ladder. And here is a cluster of apples. And you can kind of see under here, there's a little one that's kind of dead already, so you can take it off. Here's another one that's easy. You take the easy ones off first, but now you've got 3 and you have to make a decision, because as you can see, they're small right now, but as they get bigger, there's really not going to be enough room for them all to get the size of an apple. So let's see, this is kind of a little one and that's a bigger one. I think what I'll do here is I'll take off 2 apples and just leave that one to get strong. So while I'm up here, I'll take off some of the dead leaves as well. Looking around. Here's another cluster here. You see, that's a lot of apples. So this one, it's also next to a branch here. So we'll take that one off. I thought it was a spider looking at it through my camera, but it's just another blossom that didn't turn into an apple. So we'll take that one off. This here is the strongest one, but I think what I'll do is take the strongest one out this time, because now we have more breathing room for the apples to be able to mature. So I might actually leave that one with 3. So let's find another. Here's another cluster of apples. Oh, one already came out. See what I mean? It's like you need to thin them because there's just too many. If each of those grew to about the size of the palm of my hand, as you can see, there just wouldn't be enough room for them. There'd be problems. You know, they might end up getting so heavy on this tiny little branch. See how tiny that is? That it might just break the whole branch off. So you have to think of the overall care of your apple tree as well as the fruit that you've got. So I think this one, since it is such a tiny branch, I think what I'll do is take that one off and that one off. Oh, and see, that one's got kind of some problems already, so maybe we'll take that one off too. Yeah, sometimes they already, well, here's one just all by itself there. Sometimes when there's so many together, then they'll start getting bugs in them even before you get to thinning them. So you'll want to thin the ones that have bugs or that they have rub marks, bruising, that type of thing. And it might look like, oh my gosh, there's only 1 apple here and only 1 apple here. And then you realize, wait a minute, if there's 1 apple or 3 apples or whatever on every branch, you end up with a lot of apples per tree by the time they turn into full-size apples. Another thing that I do while I'm up in the tree thinning is I actually do some pruning too. So I'm gonna go get my shears. As you can tell, you've got a new growth here. You can tell where the old growth is because the old growth has next year's spurs already on it. Like there. It's like got next year's, it'll have fruit here next year on these 2. So by cutting it off here, you won't have this extra growth. Now this extra growth ends up shading the fruit below it. And by shading the fruit below it, you end up getting less fruit because you need, and also less airflow. And you want to be able to have airflow into the tree so that you have light and airflow so that the fruit that is developing will develop healthy and won't end up getting mildew or being so shaded that it doesn't have time to ripen. So I'm going to go get some clippers, and while I'm up here thinning anyway, go ahead and clip some of the branches off. Not sure if I can do this one-handed, but we'll give it a go. While I'm up here, I'll just kind of do the same thing. See, there's next year's growth there. And just clip it there. All kinds of new growth that we just kind of want to take off while we're up here. So it opens up the sunlight to get to the fruit that's underneath. Up here at the top of the tree, you kind of see what I mean by the new growth just goes like straight up. And if I let this grow, first of all, it's going to be hard for me to reach from a ladder even. But anyway, I don't want to have stuff that's so high that I can't reach it. So what I'll do is I'm going to prune off all these top pieces that are just growing up because it's spending all this energy putting out this new growth. Whereas what I want it to be doing is spending the energy putting it into the fruit. Oh, and ones that are moving back away from me, I just get rid of those. If there's going to be a branch, I want it to be coming towards me so that when it gets fruit on it, the fruit's easier to pick than a branch that's going away from me. I want to get rid of those. Plus, by getting rid of that, I can see what's going on in here. It looks like that's going to be a crop, next year's crop right there. Whereas these ones that are higher, just going to get rid of all of those. The ones that are higher and the ones that are facing away from me. And that will bring in more light to the ones that I will be able to get fruit on next year. It usually takes me several days to actually prune and thin most of my trees, just due to the fact that I do kind of look at it like an artistic thing where I look at it and go, how does that tree look for the shape overall? And then I'll come back and do some changes on it if I think it needs a little bit more pruning. And then also, as the fruits get bigger, sometimes I'll realize, well, I put 3 fruits there and that's still too much. So I'll prune or thin another of the fruits off, so it just brings it down to 2, so that the fruits that are remaining can get big. Because it's like when I'm doing it now, it seems like, oh my gosh, I'm over pruning everything. But then as things grow, then you realize I probably under thinned and under pruned as to what it really needed. But you can always go back and do more. It's kind of like cutting your hair. It's like you do what you think is good, and then if you need to come back, you can redo it. And I actually prune my fruit trees probably 2 to 3 times a year to keep them in a size that's easy for me to manage on, actually that's probably not even a 6-foot ladder. As tall as me, right? It's probably a 5-foot, yeah, it's a 5-foot ladder. So I try to do most of my work from a 5-foot ladder. And I also have a taller one that I use sometimes, but I'm trying to get away from that as I age. I'm trying to be proactive because I have profound osteoporosis and I'm probably not supposed to be on ladders anyway, but I still have really good balance. And because I've had years and years of working in orchards, because my dad owned a cherry orchard and I did work in some of the local apple orchards. I did thinning and pruning in some of the apple orchards where I was raised. I know the strategies and techniques to be safe on a ladder and to be safe in an orchard situation. So I still feel confident as long as I'm on 5-foot ladders, maybe 8-foot ladders. But like where I was raised, there'd be 10 and 12-foot ladders we'd be on. I'm not going to be on a 10 or 12-foot ladder anymore. But anyway, I have enjoyed, and I still enjoy, working in my little edible landscaping, my little edible orchard. And I plan on continuing to do this because I enjoy being outdoors. I enjoy the work. I enjoy the fruit that comes from it. And I enjoy the artistry of being able to care for a garden and care for a small orchard. Thanks for coming along with me today, and thanks for watching Barb Talks.